GaelHannan, and I have hearing loss. I am a writer, a speaker, a performer, all about hearing loss issues. I care about helping people understand how to live a better life with hearing loss. And I'm very excited to be appearing on the Online Prosperity Show to share what I have learned on my journey and hope that it will help others who might be on a similar journey.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your go-to destination for exclusive insights into the journeys of remarkable individuals. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're diving into a story that is both inspiring and enlightening. Now, Gael, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm great, Prosper. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited to have you on the show today, and I can't wait to explore your life story and your journey and what it is that you are bringing to the table today, Gael.
I have hearing loss, Prosper. I have lifelong hearing loss, and when you have hearing loss, it affects everything that you do. But before I get into that, do you have any hearing loss at all, Prosper?
Not that I have been made aware of. I think I can hear maybe say 95%. So, except when my wife is yelling at me, that's when I have selective hearing.
Yes. Yes, like my husband says, he's hard of listening. So, but hearing loss is so pervasive in society today. So even when we're not born with it, or if we don't have some physical manifestation of hearing loss, just living life and the noise that we're exposed to day after day after day can eventually, that's why almost everyone has some degree of hearing loss. Now, I don't know how old you are, and it's not nice to ask a man his age, but I'm assuming you're quite a bit younger than me. But by the time you get up to 40-ish, these days people are starting to notice that they've got some degree of hearing loss, whereas a generation or two ago, that wouldn't have started to be noticeable until around the 60s. So that just tells us what a noisy society we live in and how it just wears down our delicate hearing system. So more and more people. In fact, Prosper, by the year 2050, the World Health Organization estimates that the number of people with disabling hearing loss. Now, disabling hearing loss means that you need to wear hearing aids, you need help to hear. But the number of people with disabling hearing loss worldwide will double. In 25 years, it will double to over 700 million people worldwide. And that is going to be 1 in 10. And that's a lot of hearing loss. So, and a lot of it's preventable as well.
And thank you so much for opening us up with that, Gael. Now, for our esteemed viewer right now, I just want you to maybe imagine navigating life with a hearing loss so profound that everyday conversations become a challenge. And now picture turning that challenge into a platform for advocacy, humor, and transformation. And that's exactly what our guest today, GaelHannan, has done just that, right? So she's now a renowned advocate, author, and public speaker on hearing loss issues, and her award-winning programs and presentations have actually empowered countless individuals to take charge of their hearing loss journey. And with a unique blend of humor and insight, Gael has authored 2 impactful books. One is called The Way I Hear It, and the other one is called Here and Beyond. And we're going to be talking about those books in this episode today. So yeah, in this episode today, we're going to explore Gael's personal journey, the pivotal moment that have actually shaped her path, and also the invaluable lessons that she's gathered along the way. And we now discuss her current work, the methods she employs, and how she is making a difference in the lives of many. Now, Gael, obviously, we've already started talking and established that hearing loss is something that a lot of people pick up as they get older. But you grew up with hearing loss. Could you maybe walk us through some of the challenges that you faced and how they actually shape your perspective today?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I was born with hearing loss, and it was not diagnosed until age 2.5. Now, back in what I call the dark ages, 'cause I'm 71 now, so I was born back in the middle 50s, and so little was known about how to handle childhood hearing loss at that point. And I wasn't deaf. I was what we used to say hard of hearing, a term I don't care for, but we can talk about that later. But it was very common to not diagnose someone until they were 2 years old, because that's when we start to speak, and that's when speech and understanding really kick in. So it was mild as a child. And what that means is that I couldn't hear some things, but I still was able to get my language. And language is so important for us as human beings, whatever that language is, so that we can communicate. And this is a word I'll be using a lot because it's the most important thing in my life, not just hearing, but communicating. So I got my language. And it's hard to remember what it was like, but in school, because my mom was a nurse, she recognized that I had there was issue, diagnosed hearing loss. So in school, I always had to sit at the front of the class and be close to people because I had to read their lips. This is the sign for reading lips in American Sign Language. And in Australia, you have Australian Sign Language. It's a little bit different, quite a bit different, actually. And I don't sign, so we won't talk about that. But school, I had to sit at the front of the class, and so that I could see the teacher's lips, et cetera, et cetera. That was fine. It was when I became a teenager. And I think I challenge anyone to think back on their teenage years and say, would you like to be a teenager all over again? And most of us would go, no. We would not want to be a teenager again. Everything, all the coming of age and all of the hormones and anxiety, you put hearing loss into that. And it was very challenging. I didn't have a hearing aid until I was 20, because the hearing aids in those days were just the for children were the big body boxes that they wore, like a boom box that they had around their neck. And they didn't want to damage my hearing. So I didn't have a hearing aid in my high school years. So that was the challenge, meeting boys for the first time, and not for the first time, but, starting to date. And I would have to, in my entire life, I would have to say that was the most challenging aspect of living with hearing loss, is that those teen years. I don't want to give you a year-by-year chronological timeline of my life, but the basic thing is, once I left home after high school, and that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I really don't hear very well. Before, I had my teachers and my parents and my close friends to kind of, help me along, but I realized I did not hear very well. And I said, I need a hearing aid. And I went to a grown-up people audiologist, and I had a hearing aid within a month. Prosper, it changed my life. Everything became really loud, but it changed my life. And although I will admit that I did put it in the drawer for about 3 weeks, because it was such an assault on my senses. It was so loud, and because the brain has to get used to what it's hearing, right? And I had a hearing aid, and that was life-changing for me. But I still didn't communicate things. It was always a struggle. It was just always a struggle. And one of the things that whether you grow up with a hearing loss or whether you acquire it at your age or whatever age, it is the stigma of hearing loss. There's always been this stigma that says if you have hearing loss, you are somehow lesser than, or people will think you're old, or you don't want them to see your hearing aids because they'll think you're old or somehow defective. They don't, but we think they do. It's this self-stigma that we are somehow, now we have this, I'm going to say defect. It's not a defect, but that's how we view it. Where something, and it's hard. It's harder to communicate when the hearing goes bit by bit, but it often does. It just slowly, gets worse and worse, or it can happen overnight, or it can happen in a traumatic acoustic trauma. There's also so many reasons that cause hearing loss. It's related to so many other health issues, but it is that sense of self-esteem that was really, I didn't even realize that I had that issue until there's a big aha moment in my life. When I was 40, I was expecting my baby. Great, having a baby. And then it was like, oh my gosh, a baby. And for the first time, my hearing loss worried me. What if I couldn't hear him? What if I couldn't hear him? Like hearing high sounds and other people's little children, I always couldn't understand a word they said. So I would just smile and bluff, and we'll talk about that. But I was going to have a baby, and there was all these practical things that I had to worry about, but I didn't know anyone else with hearing loss. No, my great grandmother, but no. So for the first time, I reached out for help from other people who had hearing loss. And as I said, I didn't know anyone else up to that point. The people who gave me hearing aids, they didn't give you any training on how to live with hearing loss, how to handle those practical things, how to handle conversation, how to do better. So I went to a conference of people with hearing loss. So I'm Canadian. This was near Toronto. Oh my gosh, I walked into that conference and there was hundreds of people walking around with big honking hearing aids and little microphones that they, when you talk, so that they could bring the sound into their hearing aids. Just as right now, the sound from my computer is coming into my devices. And they were happy. I'm going, and people happy with hearing loss. Oh my gosh. And it was life-changing for me. And I had arranged to meet a woman, and she was a mom. She had 3 or 4 children, and she had profound hearing loss. She's now one of my dearest friends, but she sat down with me. I remember we sat on a bench in a hallway. She had this baby, and the baby seemed to be thriving, so that was a good sign. And we talked. And she talked about how it was going to be okay for me. I was going to be able to do this. These were some of the things I should do, but for the most part, just, it'll be fine. Be calm, be happy. You will maybe not hear certain things about your baby, that your baby does the way other people do, like the little gurgly sounds and the little squeaks they make. But maybe you will, she said. But she just calmed me in terms of it gave me peace of mind. But more than that, not the baby aside, everyone there was, instead of any shame, they were confident and they were sharing information, and it was just a life-changing experience. And I with this stigma that I was talking about, on the very last night of the conference, it was all over. So some of my new hearing loss and deaf friends, we went out for a drink at a pub near the hotel, and about 8 of us, and we went into the pub that was pretty well empty and not a lot of noise, which is great because noise is very bothersome for us. There was a table of 4 people sitting in the corner, and presumably hearing people. That's what we call people like you, people who can hear. You are hearing people. And so assuming you've never been out for a few drinks with deaf and hard of hearing people, we're really loud. We are so loud, especially after a couple glasses of wine or a beer or two, and we're loud. And I noticed this, people over in the corner, they were looking at us strangely because we were so noisy. And normally, how I react, if I'm told that, Gail, you're speaking too loud, just lower your voice, because sometimes we can't tell how loud we come in. Very embarrassing. But so I was going, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. And then I went, so what? So what? This is what people with hearing loss, this is what it's like. And Prosper, I felt that stigma just vanish. And it absolutely, it just, in fact, I went home that night, and it was late when I got in. My husband was sleeping, and I remember standing there looking at him, and I went, oh, you poor man, you can hear. I just felt so badly for him that he didn't have what I had, this brand new awareness. I got over that really quickly. Being married to a man who can hear has been very helpful for me, you know. But it changed everything for me, everything. And from that day forward, it's what I did. I had my baby. My baby's now 30. He's a great communicator. But from that day forward, I started becoming an advocate. I was in sales and marketing, and I found, this was back in the mid-90s, when hearing technology that you see today was just starting to boom, all this new digital technology, and also hearing loss was coming out of the closet, and people were starting to talk more about it. And how it was talked about was pretty basic and a little boring. So I started creating content. My background was in community theater, so I started creating dramatic pieces, comedic pieces. The focus of my work for the last 30 years has been to portray the hearing loss life and the impact of hearing loss on our lives and on our relationships, because relationships is the most important thing in our life, for most of us, 99.99% of us, our relationships. And when you have hearing loss, it affects that communication, that, interpersonal. So I started creating content. I created awareness programs. I created a program for elementary school children in Canada to teach them how to take care of their hearing, loud noise. And this is a really hard lesson for them to learn, because we as human beings love noise. We love music. Unfortunately, it's not very good for the little hair cells in our ears. And I started doing that. Then I became a writer, and I write weekly articles. I've written a couple books, as you mentioned, but I also speak. So I speak all around the world, not yet in Australia. I've had a couple of invitations, hasn't worked out, but New Zealand several times, Europe. And I talk about the many aspects of hearing loss and hearing healthcare, working with hearing care professionals. And that's what I had been doing for 30 years. And even after all this time, something I'm so passionate about. Because again, it's about communication. It's about how we connect as people.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for walking us through all of that, Gael. I mean, your experiences obviously are deep in the way that you came, out of these. But I just wanted to go back a little bit, because you said it was only until you were 2.5 when they started recognizing that you might have, this hearing issue. Now, what is it that the parents were sort of noticing that maybe parents can start seeing? Because sometimes, yes, half of the time you won't know up until it's maybe that late for anyone to do anything about that.
It's a really good question. And I'm going to jump ahead, then I'll jump back. Nowadays, we have, and I'm sure you have it in Australia, a newborn hearing screening. So that when a baby is born, they do a simple measurement in the ear, and they can tell whether a baby has the potential for hearing loss or is deaf. And if they do, then intervention can start right away. And whatever that intervention might be, it might be, it depends on what route the parent, if the child is deaf, then what language are they going to go the spoken route or signed route, or what does the child need? So, but back then, and this didn't come in Canada, it wasn't introduced until 2002. So it's just over 20, 25 years. So it's relatively new. So luckily, my mother was a nurse. And so you have children, right? You have children? You do.
Yeah.
2 girls. So how old are they?
So 9 and just gone 6.
Oh, you had to think about it. You had to think about it. So, but I'm going to tell your wife, if you think back to when they were small and before they became verbal, they would still respond, even if they didn't yet have speech. That's what kicks in 18 months or so. But there are clues. My parents might have called me, and I might not have turned and responded, or it might have been hard to get my attention, and so it could have been behavioral. Is she stubborn, or is there something else going on? So my mother was a nurse, so she picked up on these things, and so that was the first clue. I wasn't responding in the way that a child might at that age, at 18 months, 20 months, 24 months. So so it was very typical. The average age of detection of hearing loss in children prior to newborn hearing screening was 2.5. So the question, and sometimes a child turns out to be deaf, and the parents go, how could I not have noticed this? But and this is where communication kicks in. We communicate in so many ways. So you're looking at your daughters, you're smiling with them, and this is before their speech kicked in. They're laughing. They can make sounds, maybe, and so you don't notice. So there's often a lot of guilt, and there's also guilt. What caused this? So much of it we don't know. Hearing loss, there's so much we don't know. So my hearing loss, it could have been, there was no one in my family with it, but my mother had a very challenging pregnancy, didn't gain much weight. She only gained 12 pounds, and it was a difficult pregnancy, a difficult childbirth, and I was very small. Well, I wasn't that small, but very small, very cute, apparently, but very small. Who knows what could have caused it? There are just so many things. Many times, children have childhood ear infections, which will cause some hearing loss. So, or sometimes it's genetic. My writing partner, my co-author on Here and Beyond, hers is genetic, and it's late adult onset. So her hearing loss didn't start until she was in her 20s. So there's just so many different aspects of hearing loss and what causes it, and how we deal with it, how we react to it. There's so many factors. Why are some people more successful living with hearing loss than others? So that's what I find fascinating. The technology is something you're talking to the girl who doesn't even know how the picture gets on the television set. I think of it as magic. And I don't have to know that. Someone else knows it. I just have to know that this cochlear implant or this hearing aid, if I put a battery in it, boom, I'm going to be able to hear. That's all I care about. And so someone else can figure out that stuff. I'm always more fascinated in how we deal with our hearing loss. And so if you were to get hearing loss tomorrow, I hope that doesn't happen. But and after talking with me tonight, you say, "Oh, this is so great and right. We shouldn't have this stigma." But if you were to develop hearing loss tomorrow, you would go through some of the same situation, even though intellectually you know you're not defective. It's hearing loss, but having to deal with it, and all of a sudden you don't hear your wife as well, and there's frustrations, and your children are going, "Daddy, why aren't you, paying attention to me?" So you would have to go through this. It's an individual journey that we all of us with hearing loss have to go through. And what makes the difference is the supports that are available to us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that. Now, as you say, now people, you did mention this statement that hearing loss is sort of coming out of the closet. And just going through life, I was just picturing what my day-to-day is like. I literally have to be around so many people, hear their stories, maybe go into the city, or maybe just go across the road, pick my girls from school and things of that nature. And there's just so much that our ears help us navigate the world around us. Now, maybe you can paint a picture what that is like for somebody who doesn't have that opportunity, just so we have an understanding of the kind of world you were living in.
So I think what you're asking, as a hearing person, you do what comes naturally. You hear. In fact, you can't help it. You hear even if you don't want to. We have to work at it. So everything that I do, because I have even with my devices, I still have a pretty severe to profound hearing loss. So almost everything I do, I call it purpose driven. I have to be set things up so that I'm understanding and hearing. For example, you mentioned going across the road to pick up your girls. So you look to see if her car is coming, but I have to double check even more on make sure that I'm safe. And I'm always checking sounds, everything that I do. Give me another example I can explain, but hearing
Shopping.
impact. Yeah, give me an example. Yeah.
Maybe you go out shopping, or you at a sporting event, wanting to understand what the score is for.
Yeah, it's everything, except I would never go to a sporting event because I don't like sports. I know I'm supposed to like hockey and that, but I'll tell you what, actually, I have gone to a lot of hockey games because my stepson was a professional hockey player in the NHL. And and I married into a hockey family. But hockey arenas for people with hearing loss is very challenging. It's very noisy. And it's sort of the paradox that I'm not hearing very well. I need you to speak up. But on the other hand, noise doesn't help us hear better. Louder things, it's very disruptive to us. It's very, very challenging. And we can't communicate in noise. And that's when people first start realizing that they might have hearing loss. All of a sudden, if there's background noise, if you're out for dinner with your wife and the kids, all of a sudden you might go, "Oh, not too noisy in here." That's a sign of hearing loss at some point. But going grocery shopping, understanding strangers speak. This is always one of the more challenging things. We always understand people better once we get used to their speech patterns and how they speak, because most of us with hearing loss, a significant hearing loss, we speech read, we lip read. We call it speech reading because I'm not just looking at your lips. when you're talking, Prosper. I'm looking at other communication clues. What do your eyes tell me? What's your body language doing? What's the context? What's the topic we're discussing? What is, all of these things, do your eyes match what your words are saying? Like if you're talking about something happy, but your eyes are like dead, there's a disconnect. So that way speech reading is very, it's crucial to how we understand. It's not just hearing, it's all these other things that make up communication. And communication is what connects us as people. And you mentioned the shopping. When the pandemic hit, it was traumatic for everyone. And so many people discovered that when they had to start wearing masks, all of a sudden they were going, oh, I'm not understanding very well. There were a lot of hearing aids sold after the pandemic because people realized that they depend a lot on speech reading. So, does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I actually that didn't.
You never thought about that, right? No. So when I don't have a mask in front of me, but the mask not only cover the lips, excuse me, but it degrades the sound. It muffles it a little bit. For those of us with hearing loss, when people had to start wearing masks, it was almost traumatic for us because it threw us back to a place where we were before. We had, we were communicating well. We knew that we had a speech read. We need to be self-advocates, such as, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat yourself? Or could you face me? With masks, that just threw us back to a whole different spot. And all of a sudden, I had to depend more on my husband once again to, what did she say? What did he say? So these are just hearing loss affects everything we do, how we go to school, how we work in the office. But I'll tell you, you and I are talking on Zoom, and this became a way of life with the pandemic. And for me, as a person with hearing loss, I love it because business meetings, in-person business meetings in my life before were always challenging because you would say something and then someone over here would respond and the conversation would be organic and it would be ping, ping, pinging around the boardroom table or in the meeting. And speech readers were trying to follow that. Very challenging. But speaking on Zoom, I can speak to a number of people. The sound is coming through my devices, and I have captioning at the bottom in most Zoom meetings. Prosper and I are laughing because for some reason the captioning's not working at my end tonight, and it's his fault. I know it's his fault.
Of all the meetings that we need in life. No, but if you look at this, Gael, your past and the kind of things that you got yourself involved in, I would think they require the most hearing. I mean, if you're in theater, you obviously are in a space where you've got to communicate to the person at the back of the room. And they have to obviously get what you're saying. And that's a lot of noise and projection and all that stuff. And then I don't know who hurt you. You decided to go into sales and marketing, which obviously also involves heavily having to communicate with so many different people, so many different, niches and genres and all of that stuff. How has all of this now influenced your approach and advocacy to public speaking?
Because I learned strategies. And you mentioned theater. So back when I was doing theater, my hearing wasn't quite as challenging. And I didn't have tinnitus, which is head noise, which is a whole different ball game, but it does affect how I hear. But I really had to be assertive about having my needs met. And this is fundamental to living well with hearing loss. I had to say in that meeting, and I usually sat next to the person who ran the meeting because most people look at that person. But I had to say, I have hearing loss. Can we speak one at a time, please? Or which is impossible. Human beings cannot speak one at a time. No, I know, yeah. Or just indicate when you're speaking, or be prepared that I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself on occasion. The fact that am able, and it was a skill I had to acquire through time, that I am able to ask for support for you to repeat yourself, that I can do it because it's natural and I deserve to participate the same as the next person. There's no shame in asking for help. And the response from people, why wouldn't they repeat themselves? People, it's part of life, especially now that hearing loss is more people are admitting it more, and they're not worried about people seeing their hearing aids as much. But I just learned the strategies that I needed to do. Good technology, being open about my hearing loss, clear sight lines, always being able to see whoever's speaking or on the stage. If I'm going to theater, which I don't as much now because it's just too noisy for me. So all these strategies that we can put into place, and what we call hearing hacks. We talk about it in my book, little things that we can do that we can hear better. So I just, I don't feel any shame. And in fact, I'm actually quite proud of how I've evolved over the years. It's kind of an arc. My hearing was getting worse, but technology was getting better. So I was kind of like this. And but even now, I get by. It's great. I can TV streamers. Like I can connect to the TV. You love your phone. I love my phone more than you love your phone because my phone is my communication center. Phones give me speech to text. So if I was having difficulty understanding, I could just turn on my little app and it would say, oh, that's what he said. Really? My hearing aids work through an app. It sends sound. When I'm on the phone, I don't have to talk like this. Who does? But because it comes right into my devices. So I'm telling you, this is my little lifeline. So. What was the question? I think I wandered off the topic as usual.
I love it. I love it. And, you are bringing in a lot of insights that not so many people are privy to. But while you were also talking, you did mention you had a mindset shift where you actually wanted to shift your goal from wanting to hear better and wanting to communicate better. And this was a change in mindset that really affected your life and your work. Could you explain what the distinction actually is?
It's a big distinction. Thanks for asking that. Communication isn't just hearing. So it isn't just about hearing. It's about connection with people. And a lot of the hearing health care that we get now is very hearing aid focused. You've got some great organizations in Australia. You've got Hear Australia, you've got Better Hearing Australia, you've got a lot of great research going on there. The Cochlear Corporation started there. And because technology has taken off, but that's allowed us to hear better in a way that we never, ever, ever could before. But it's not just about hearing. It's about what I see. It's about what we say. It's about, and I need to speech read, as I was talking about. So it's not just about hearing. It's about what I can see. And it's about that connection with other people. And it all rolls up into communication. When I stop thinking, I just need to hear better, I just need to get a better hearing aid, when I realized that was not the only factor and that it was more about communication, then that opened up a lot of things for me. I don't sign, that's not my language, but I know a few sign. But the sign in American Sign Language for communication is like two C's and it's back and forth. And I love this because that shows that communication is a two-way street. It's what I call a tango for two or a folk dance for many. And it's more than just hearing. It's body language, and it's what we're saying, and it's all of these things. And so and that's what I try to create in my life is communication. And I'm not a perfect communicator. And my husband and I call him the hearing husband in my writing. We've been together 35 years. And I will tell you that not a day goes by that there isn't one little friction moment such about hearing. Like he'll be talking and then he'll walk away and he's talking while he's walking away. Now, I'm sure you never do that to your partner, ever, do you, Prosper? Because what has happened that all of a sudden you have eyes on the back of your head and I can understand what you're saying? Because communication is so natural, it flows, and we forget in the moment that I might not hear that. Or, yeah, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you've actually brought up something that a lot of people might not, pay attention to, which is, speaking while you're on your way out. And I usually have, this is my wife. She closes the car door. I'm still standing in the garage, and she's talking, and I'm like, do you think I can hear you through the glass and everything else that happens in that? I just put the sign, and I'm like, just call me from your phone, and
and let me into the car.
absolutely. So for those maybe without hearing loss, but you have said so many people are, contracting this at an earlier age. What can they do to better support and understand those who do?
Depends on the relationship. So I think that the responsibility starts with the person who has the hearing loss to express their needs. But when you've been in a relationship with someone, so my husband, the hearing husband, understands what he should do. And sometimes I might talk while I'm walking away. But the thing is to do what I need, which is to don't call me from another room. Get my attention before you start talking to me. And you don't have to have hearing loss to have this be an important part of good communication. I mean, it's good communication anyway. And just understanding what we need. If you were in a close relationship with someone, if you are the spouse of someone with hearing loss who's developing hearing loss or has it, or a family member or a close friend, a really good idea is to go to the audiologist for a joint family meeting or a partner meeting, and to better understand the reality of hearing loss. And most hearing care professionals welcome that. You say, could I? And they may, nowadays, we're hoping that they are actually suggesting, why don't you bring your wife in with you? Why don't your husband come with you? It's up to that person, the client, to decide whether they want that, because that's a personal choice. But when my husband, who has come to meeting appointments with me, someone else can explain things to him better than perhaps I can because there's no emotion involved. You know what it's like when you're in a relationship with someone, emotion and frustration can interfere with good communication. Whereas if they're in the audiology office with the professional, the conversation can be better, and they being the audiologist might be able to explain things that your wife or my husband might understand in a different way. So it's not other basic tips, right? You don't talk to someone covering your mouth like this. I don't like anyone wearing a ball cap, because if you wear a ball cap, it shades your eyes, and so much of the information comes from the eyes. But it's up to me to say, honey, could you take off your ball cap, please? There's just so many little tips on how we can all communicate better. And I mentioned a lot of them, but there's always a lot more. So normally I say, read the book, get the book.
And I was gonna go there now, Gail. Now, for those that are seeking maybe to, expand their awareness and knowledge around the work that you do, first of all, how can they maybe get in touch with you, or where can they go to get more information about, how to approach this?
Oh, there's so much. But if they want to find me, I am on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and GaelHannan. Pretty easy to find. I'm more than happy to chat and or whatever. And I'll give you my email address, or maybe you can put it up, but it's hannangd@gmail.com. Anyone want to contact me directly? But what I really recommend, if you have hearing loss, or someone in your life has hearing loss, reach out for help. Speak to your family physician first, maybe, or go and have a hearing test. Every person as an adult should have a baseline hearing test just to keep an eye on it. But there are a lot of great resources, books, my book, other people's books. It is a growing issue, and if you yourself don't have hearing loss, chances are someone close to you, or a friend, a parent, a child might have hearing loss. So it's really a good thing to do to understand the impact of hearing loss on our lives. Hearing aids, this is really important. Hearing aids don't correct hearing loss in the way that wearing glasses correct vision. If I put on my glasses, I can see perfectly while I'm wearing those glasses. When I put on my hearing aid, it doesn't correct the hearing loss problem. It amplifies, it clarifies, but it still doesn't capture all of the information, which is why I need to see it on your lips. So that's what most people don't understand about hearing technology. The two senses are very different. Vision, when you put on glasses, light is reflected or refracted or something scientific, and it fixes it. Hearing is a nerve, a sensory nerve issues, and it just cannot be repaired at this point by anything, but hearing aids help, as I said. So it's really important for people to realize that. And I think that's one of the things, if there's someone in your life who has hearing loss, you could think, well, why don't they get a hearing aid? Or they're wearing hearing aids. What's the problem? So better understanding of hearing loss and what technology can and can't do is extremely helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Gail, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me on the call today, and just having an understanding of what it feels like and what it looks like. But I think it would be remiss for me to maybe not put this into play as well. You did mention, as you get to age 40 and things of that nature, your hearing starts diminishing, and you obviously need to have some sort of a checkup and things of that nature. But I don't know if you've noticed, the videos or the sounds on kids videos these days are getting louder and louder. Or am I actually losing my hearing from what you have said?
Maybe. Maybe. The term for is age-related hearing loss. And nowadays, what they're saying is it's not really age-related, it's life hearing loss, because what we have in our inner ear, all these little hair cells, right? And the cochlea, you've heard of the cochlea. So little hair cells in there, and sound comes in and just blasts these little hair cells. And eventually they start to, get like this. And sometimes they just they die, they can't be repaired. And so we have 15,000 hair cells in each ear. So as we get older and we are listening to more music and our own voices and concerts and podcast every day, Zoom every day, those little hair cells are getting tighter and tighter. Now, some people make it to 90 and 100 years old and they hear very well. They're the exception. But so we all lose a little bit of hearing as we get older. Some of us lose a lot. And so you need to protect your hearing. So turn down the noise, reduce your exposure to loud sounds. If you do like to go to concerts, stand back. I mean, it taking care of so much of hearing loss, of noise-induced, what we call noise-induced hearing loss, is preventable. They say it's 100% preventable. I don't agree with that because noise is part of life, so it's not 100%. But do protect your ears. You can wear earplugs at noisy events and still hear everything. You're just protecting those hair cells better. Yeah, but for people who walk around talking all day long with their AirPods and just saying, careful.
Does that also count for the voices in my head, Gael?
Oh, that's something different, Prosper, those voices in your head. You want to talk to someone else, have someone else on your show to talk, but that's something different. So
so that's not affecting my 15,000.
I can't help you with that. No.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've brought us into your world, and it's exciting the things that you're working on. What's next for Gael? What is it that you're?
Well, I continue to do this. I do it less now. I don't do it full time. Well, yeah, I haven't really stopped doing it too much, but I'm doing a TED Talk in a couple of weeks. So I'm very excited about that. So I will be, I'll let you know when it comes out, probably in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that. Thinking about a third book. But in the meantime, I continue to talk. My Sherry Eberts is my co-writer. We do a lot of joint sessions. We talk with people all over the continent and hearing care professionals, universities. And I'll just continue to do what I love to do, and which is why I'm so grateful that you reached out to me to come on to this, because it's important for people to take care of their hearing, to understand their hearing, and to understand the role it plays in the relationships in their lives. You know, hearing loss is so pervasive, and yet there's ways that we can deal with it. There's one thing I haven't mentioned, and I hope I just have a couple moments. One thing that people with hearing loss do a lot is bluff. They pretend to understand what's being said, but they don't. And this is a very negative communication strategy, and we all do it. All human beings bluff sometimes. We do it more. And it's really important for us to learn how to learn the positive strategies of hearing loss so that we don't bluff, because we miss out on so much. We miss out on so much. If I hadn't had hearing loss, we were talking about this earlier, you and I, what would life be like? I might be married to some other guy if I didn't have hearing loss, because I bluffed my way through a few dates, and that relationship fizzled because I wasn't open about my hearing loss. Who knows if I would have married him? But the point is, I was bluffing, and it's very. I just want to throw that in for anyone who's listening, because bluffing is something that we do a lot, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't do it.
Well, now that you've brought that into play, if somebody calls you on your bluff, then does that not constitute some sort of attack? Like
friction?
Yes.
Most people wouldn't call you on your bluff. If my husband notices that I'm bluffing, or if and what that means is he might have seen that I'm kind of drifting off. I'm sitting there just pretending because the situation may be too difficult. Maybe have together with some couple friends in the conference. So he'll notice, and he might jab me a little bit, or he'll sort of bring me into the conversation. But quite often, people won't, unless you know me very well, you won't know that I'm bluffing. And that's the danger. So when I'm talking, if you're, it's really a waste of time to be bluffing because you're wasting your time. You're pretending to be in a conversation, and it's very discourteous to the person with whom you're speaking. They think you're following along. It's just, we do it, and the reason we do it is because we don't know how to ask to have our needs met, or we get very tired. There's something called listening fatigue, and we have to put a lot of energy. We have to work at it, as I mentioned before, and that takes extra energy. So that's one of the reasons that we bluff. So this is an area that I talk about a lot because I happen to be a very good bluffer, but I try not to do it. I'm really, in this later years of my life, I think, how much time have I got left on this earth? I'm not going to bluff my way through it. So.
Well, thank you so much, Gael.
You're so welcome.
But I must say, in as much as you conducted and communicated well, you did commit the ultimate crime on the Online Prosperity Show, and you are gonna have to make it right.
Yes, sir. What would that be?
You did over communicate that you've got a book coming up, but you did not communicate that you were going to come back and launch it on the Online Prosperity Show. So if you...
Well, I will. I haven't written it yet, but I will. And I would love to come back sometime. So if you ever do panel discussions or there's anything, so I would be happy. And I want to thank you for reaching out. And I thank you for... I understand this might be a little different than some of the people that you have on, but I think that it's so wonderful that you use your platform to help others live better lives and be more successful at it. That's what we all want.
Absolutely. Well, I do appreciate you for taking us on and jumping on the call today and not bluffing your way through. So I really appreciate that.
I didn't do it once.
Thank you for sharing your incredible journey with us. I mean, your story is just a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the power of communication. In life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. And you obviously have lived through a life with hearing loss, but you've learned what you had to learn. And one of the things that I caught from what you said is just sit next to the person who's speaking and everybody else directs their conversation at you. It's just simple and it just works for just about everybody else. And now you're contributing your ideas and your insights for those, that might be coming across maybe hearing loss at a later age, or maybe one of their loved ones. And it is something that, in as much as we're going to be alive, something like this might happen, not now, maybe not in the near future, but it will come around to you. And thank you so much for taking the time to really explain to us how it all works behind the scenes.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. And for those that are watching, or to our listeners, if you found this conversation valuable, please maybe share in your comments below. Maybe you have had experience with hearing loss, or you've faced challenges with a loved one that might be going through maybe the onset of hearing loss, and let us know how you've managed to navigate that for yourself and for them. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out Gael's books. One of them is called The Way I Hear It, and another one is Here and Beyond, for more insights and guidance into this here subject. And I encourage you to stay tuned to our next episode, where we're going to be exploring ideas that will help you lead a happier and more fulfilling life. And just remember to subscribe for more inspiring stories that we share on this podcast. I can't wait to see what you're going to be doing with the information that we shared today. But if you are personally navigating the complexities of hearing loss, or maybe know somebody who is, please take the first step towards better communication. Explore Gael's resources, attend her workshops, and maybe join a community that actually understands and supports you, because your journey to empowerment and connection starts today. I hope you heard this. Bye for now.